Good morning. I'm now calling this meeting to order. We're going to foreclose with the opening script and land acknowledgement because we're going to be moving into a closed session and do that afterwards. So are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? No. Seeing none, we're going to move into a closed session, and I move to suspend the rules of procedure. Can I get a mover for the motion to suspend the rules of procedure to allow the introduction of a closed session report without notice regarding Central Park receivership update? Okay, Councillor Tyler Morin. Can I call for a vote? Or do I have to have a vote on that?
Yes, a vote is
Okay.
required, Madam Chair.
A vote, please. And that carries. Okay. So can I get a mover for the motion to move into a closed session? Councillor Bauer. So moved by Councillor Bauer that the committee convene to a closed session pursuant to section 2392B, 2392C, 239F, and 2392I of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, to discuss proposed or pending acquisitions or dispositions of land by the municipality or local board, to discuss advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose and to disclose a matter pertaining to a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relation information supplied in confidence to the municipality, which if disclosed could reasonably be expected to produce sufficiently the competitive position or interference significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group, or person or organization negotiations. So now calling on a vote. Don't make me say that again. Please. Just vote yes. Okay, and that And that carries.
Yep, so the next motion required is to ratify the directions or the actions taken in camera.
Can I get a mover to ratify from the actions taken in council? Mayor Collier, thank you. Now call to vote. Thank you. Everyone vote, please. Thank you. It carries. And we're going to take a 10-minute recess. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm calling this meeting to order. This meeting of the General Government Committee is being held in a hybrid meeting format with virtual and in-person participation by members of the public, staff, and council. This meeting is also being live streamed and may be viewed online at ajax.ca/live. A friendly reminder to all participants to please use their microphone at all times for the benefit of those participating in council chambers and joining remotely. I'm now calling this meeting to order, and we are going to do the land acknowledgement. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional treaty territories of the Mississaugas. More specifically, the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nations, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action in acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. So we're now going into
Adoption of the minutes.
adoption of the minutes. Can I get a mover, please? Are we adopting all the minutes at once?
Yes, there's
Yes.
only one set of minutes on the
Yes.
agenda.
Pardon? My button. Can I? Yes. Yeah. Mayor Collier is going to move it.
Members of council, we're waiting for one vote.
Excellent, that passed. Okay, so we're going into the adoption of the minutes from,
No, we are now onto the consent agenda.
oh, consent agenda. There was no items that were separated for discussion. Has anything changed? No one's pulled anything? Excellent, a first, how wonderful. Can I get a mover for the consent agenda? Councillor Crawford. And are there any comments or questions? I take there's none. Excellent, I call for a vote, please. Excellent, that's passed. So in the discussion period, we have no items for discussion today. So we're moving into presentations, correct? Excellent. So I now call upon Director Vita to introduce item 7.1.
We've got Laura Ray coming up to provide this presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Collier, members of council and staff. So over the last 2 years, the Recreation and Culture Department has been working on the development of a gender equity framework to further support the inclusion of women and girls in recreational sport. So sport and physical activity, as we know, has many benefits, some including improvements to mental, social, and physical health. However, girls, women, and gender diverse individuals have historically experienced many barriers to participation in sport and are largely underrepresented across all levels of sport within the Canadian sports system, and therefore, unfortunately, unable to realize many of these benefits. So the Recreation and Culture Department has been working to strengthen our efforts to increase participation for female identifying participants through the implementation of programs and initiatives that I'm excited to share with you today. So I wanted to start with providing a little bit of context for the work that's being done. So first and foremost, empowering girls and women in sport has been identified as a priority both corporately and at the departmental level. So this is identified in the Strategic Plan Action 26, which speaks to the further development of girls-only programming under the pillar of connecting our communities and within the priority level of improving well-being and quality of life. And this is also a recommendation within the 2021 Recreation and Parks Master Plan, specifically to have intentional and direct engagement of underrepresented participants, including women and girls. So this directly aligns with the Canadian government's target to achieve gender equity in sport at all levels by 2035. So this was announced in 2018 through the federal budget, in which $30 million was contributed for the initial investment that was to go towards research, data collection, and innovative practices within the sector. So we're now just over 10 years away from that target. So it is a very aggressive timeline, which is going to require efforts on all fronts to really achieve that goal. And so finally, the framework I wanted to provide some context around is really supported today by the work of Canadian and Women in Sport. So much of the framework that we're putting forth has been based in their evidence and research and the data that we put forth. So I want to just provide that context to frame up where we're getting kind of our statistics from and the comparators to when we're looking at our municipal services as well. So finally, I do want to provide a little bit of context around what I mean when we're talking about gender equity in sport. So really, it is the process of ensuring that we are allocating resources. So for example, our facilities, marketing and promotion, training opportunities, and also access to sport programming opportunities in a fair and equitable way to people of all genders. So this process really involves identifying different barriers and imbalances, and then addressing the, those barriers and imbalances and, systematic discrimination that's within our current recreational sports system. So the Canadian Women in Sport organization provides a framework and really an assessment tool to get organizations started on having some of these conversations and assessments. So up on the screen you can see one of the ways to do so is look at our participation rates. So looking at the sport programming that we do provide and looking at co-ed programs, and are they truly serving a co-ed demographic, or are they imbalanced towards one gender or the other? Our hiring and recruitment process. So do we have women in leadership roles and are there sport role models for girls and women within our programming? Marketing and promotion. So again, how are we marketing and promoting our current sport programs? And what are the images? Are they positive images of girls in sport and not stereotyped? As well as facility allocation. So looking at the facilities that we do operate, how we are allocating those spaces and ensuring that everyone has equal access to time slots as well as premier facilities as well. So again, just to provide a bit more context, for the basis of this presentation, we are really going to be focusing on the participation rate component in the gender equity analysis for recreational sport. So in addition to that assessment tool that is provided through Canadian Women in Sport, they've conducted really extensive research in the field and released 2 very significant reports within the last couple years that speak to the current state of the Canadian sports system and the inclusion of women and girls in that. So as you can see here, so these statistics are based on 2 reports, the first being the Rally Report 2020, encouraging action to improve sport for women and girls, as well as the Rally Report 2022, a call for better and safer sport for girls. So in the first report, the 2020 report, there were over 10,000 Canadians surveyed, 75% of which were female identifying, and they found that by adolescence, 50% of girls are not participating in sport nationwide. They also found that the dropout rate is alarming. So 1 in 3 girls will drop out of sport by the time of adolescence in comparison to 1 in 10 boys. So this report already indicates that we are pretty far behind in terms of equitable participation in sport for girls and women. And then unfortunately, the follow-up report in 2022 emphasizes that COVID has now set the bar even further back. So from the 2022 report, it found that 1 in 4 girls who were currently participating in sport but was negatively impacted by the COVID pandemic will not return to sport. And that will account for over 350,000 girls and women nationwide not returning to sport. So again, these reports also emphasize that girls, women, and gender diverse individuals experience some pretty unique barriers to participation, some of which include concerns regarding body image, risks to their personal safety, injury, and then it's also noted in the report as well that in addition to low participation rates, girls, women, and gender diverse participants experience more gender, racial, and religious discrimination as well in the sports sector. So again, as you can see, these statistics are pretty alarming and require interventions at all levels of sport. So really to help some organizations, address these imbalances, Canadian Women in Sport have developed the Same Game Challenge program. So the Same Game is a program that's aimed at empowering sport leaders with knowledge and tools to tackle gender inequity and help make the Canadian sports system more inclusive. So this is an evidence-based, step-by-step program and toolkit, and the program provides one-on-one mentoring sessions. So you are linked with an expert in the field of gender equity in sport. It also includes 6 group sessions. So every season is cohorted, so then you also have the opportunity to work with others who are also trying to embed gender equity practices within their organizations and share best practices and techniques to do so. It includes 5 gender equity e-learning codes, so we're also able to train 5 additional staff within the Recreation and Culture Department in gender equity learning. And also a $1,000 bursary towards a gender equity initiative run by the town. So last July, the Recreation and Culture Department applied and were successfully accepted into the 2023-2024 cohort of the GTA Same Game Challenge. And I'm also happy to report that we are the first municipality within the GTA Challenge to join the program. So that is a good feather in our cap. So as I mentioned, the program really helps organizations develop and realize their gender equity vision. So participants walk through a 7-step process that's really to embed gender equity within their organization. So this involves creating a vision, collecting data, obviously using that data to develop an action plan, implementing that, communicating achievements, getting buy-in from stakeholders, and then reflecting and advising. It is a cyclical process, so it's not something that we just do once. This will be ongoing throughout our process, and we will be reevaluating as needs shift within the community. So before we enrolled in the Same Game Challenge, we were actually doing a lot of this. So I'll get into what our analysis looked like in a second. But since we've been enrolled in the program, it's given us a really more structured and directed approach to embedding these kind of principles within the Recreation and Culture Department. So on that note, so as I mentioned, we started the process of building a gender equity framework for our recreational sports before we entered the Same Game program. And the first step was really knowing what our starting point was. So where were the inequalities and inequities within our current sports system within the municipality? So we began by conducting an extensive analysis of our participation rate trends within our co-ed recreational sport programs. So before I get into the findings, I do want to kind of establish a little bit of context for the data sample that was used, because there are some limitations to the data that was utilized for this analysis. So all of the data was exported from our ActiveNet software, which is the primary registration software system for the Recreation and Culture Department. And then in terms of classification of female, this is based on registrant, self-selected female gender through the ActiveNet registration process, which is a binary female-male field. So the data is reflective of registered programs only. We do offer a variety of drop-in recreational sport programs, but we do not collect the same type of demographic data for those programs. So we weren't able to include that in the qualitative analysis through this process. However, through observational analysis, we can note that our drop-in programs do align with the findings that came through the quantitative analysis. We used from fall 2017 to winter 2024. With that being said, we do acknowledge that there were significant program disruptions between the period of March 2020 to March 2022, which was a result of the pandemic. We analyzed 263 recreational sport barcodes, which span the ages of 4 to 17 years of age. And what we found is that there is a large imbalance. So 31% of those participants identify as female versus 68.9% identifying as male. So this is consistent with what we're seeing through the national report put through by Canadian Women in Sport. But furthermore, of the program, so of those 263 barcodes, some of them represent girls-only programming. So prior to initiatives that we've started recently, we did offer select girls-only programs such as basketball and a girl multi-sport program. When you remove that data from co-ed and you look specifically just at co-ed programming, it's actually quite more significant of an imbalance. So when we take out girls-only sport programming, we're actually looking at 22% female participation rate versus 78% male participation rate in co-ed programs. So that's about 2 females for every male, or for every 8 males participating in recreational sport. This is a snapshot of looking at participation rates by program for male participation, and you can see that there are some very significant imbalances when you break it down by program, with 15 of 17 programs over 65% of male participation rates, with 3 of which, hockey, cricket, and hang time, sitting over 90% male participation rates. Another benefit of having the girls-only programming when we were doing this analysis is that it acts as a control group, so we can kind of figure out some of the things that are happening behind the data as to why this may be occurring. So what we learned is when we are looking at the full overall participation rates, 37.2% of all females prefer or select girls-only programming of all female participants participating in sport recreational programs. And then when you look at averages, girls-only programming serves 17.6 female identifying participants versus co-ed programming, which only serves an average of 3.3, which is about nearly 5.5 times higher. So what this tells us is that girls and women avidly do want to participate in sport, but they want to participate in a female protected space. So since we've analyzed the data, I want to share some of the progress and some of the initiatives that we've undertaken to address these imbalances and inequities within the recreational sports system. So as I mentioned, a component of the Canadian Women in Sports Same Game program is to develop a gender equity vision to guide current and future work. So as the operator of public multi-sport facilities, which function as the primary infrastructure for grassroots and organized sport, the town plays a significant role in facilitating and supporting community-based sport opportunities. So the vision, Building Pathways to Sport for Girls and Women, was created to capture the many ways in which municipal recreation has the capacity to influence gender equity in sport. So the pathways we've chosen are programs, partnerships, training, facility use and allocation, policies and marketing, which again go back and very much reflect the tool provided by the Canadian Women in Sport organization of that assessment for gender equity. So additionally, in identifying these pathways, we're also able to have measurable gains and report back on the progress that we've achieved under each specific area. So I'll provide some examples of how we're going to provide measurable outcomes. So first, since 2020, we have created 5 new pathways to recreational sport for girls and women. We have an Elevate Girls Sport Camp, which is an all-girls sports camp. I'll talk in a moment about the Jays Care Foundation, so we were part of a pilot project through them for Girls at Bat. We've introduced Girls Only Shinny, and the numbers you're seeing beside each of these indicate how many participants participated in the programs. We've introduced Girls Only Indoor Soccer to complement our basketball and multi-sport program, and then we'd also have introduced a Toronto and District Women's Squash League. So they do league play, and then there are also various tournaments throughout the season. So in total, through that 5 pathways, we've served 394 participants through new recreational sport opportunities. So Elevate Girls Sport Camp, I just want to highlight 2 of those program pathways, was a new initiative that occurred last summer in 2023. And so it is our first girls-only sports camp. We had 30 attendees, so we maxed out on our first year, which was fantastic to see. Again, when we're talking about equitable opportunities, it was hosted at our premier sport facility, so the Audley Recreation Center, and could take advantage of all the amenities that is offered at that facility. And again, you have to see it to be it. So we featured women's sport leaders at every level. So we had our camp staff that are trained in sport to instruct. We had trained fitness staff come in and do workshops. And we actually had, as you see on the screen, Natalie Weidman, who is an medaled Olympic softball athlete, come in and run a softball clinic with the participants in that program directly on the Pan Am fields, in which her team won gold in the 2015 Pan Am Games. So that was really fantastic to have, and a great experience for the participants. As I mentioned, we were also part of a pilot program through the municipal government partner stream of the Jays Care Foundation for Girls at Bat. So we offered girls sport again after the success in the summer during our March break programming, and we integrated the curriculum directly into the Elevate Girls Sport. So Jays Care provides both staff training, a sport curriculum to implement throughout the week, as well as a full complement of equipment as well. And one more example in terms of being able to provide measurable outcomes. Under the training pathway, we've created 2 new pathways to training. These have both come directly through those partnership opportunities with Canadian Women in Sport and the Jays Care Foundation. So we have 2 full-time staff members going through the training through Canadian Women in Sport, and we have 5 additional codes to provide other staff within the Recreation and Culture Department to create those gender equity modules, as well as the Jays Care Foundation. So we had, again, 2 coordinators at the full-time level complete the training, as well as 4 of our part-time staff who would be implementing the program to the participants. So in total, we've created 11 gender equity training opportunities through that pathway. So what's next? We're currently looking at a number of different pathways in development. So these are falling under facility allocation and use, as well as policies. At the current time, we are in the process of revising one of our kind of touchstone policies at ICE allocation. As well as looking at gymnasium usage and analysis. So, to reflect gender equity in these areas, it's really important to, again, apply a gender lens. And I'll give an example. So in the ICE allocation policy, we look a lot as a standard of residency. So we look to have high residency rates in order to, guide our allocation process. However, when you're looking at some of these younger organizations or female participant organizations that are fledgling and have to draw from participation across the region in order order to make up the numbers to have a league, that's really, it's a barrier. It's a barrier to that allocation process because they're not going to be able to meet that residency requirement. So now looking at having a residency requirement, but then also other stipulations that if they are a sole provider of that sport for that demographic, then we can also consider that as well. So having more flexibility in those policies to ensure that we're not systemically discriminating against a young female league trying to get their footing within our area in sport. And then in terms of our same game cycle, we're still doing some data collection. So as I mentioned, the data is limited. So we were limited to what we were able to get through our software systems. So really we need to start looking at those qualitative pieces and looking at partnerships to have those focused discussions to again find out who is not accessing our program and what we can do better to encourage and support more inclusion of women, girls, and gender diverse individuals in our recreational programming, as well as communication. So really building campaigns around girls and women in sport. I'm sure many have seen the Women's Hockey League. They are doing a fantastic job of promoting women in sport. So really taking, a piece from that and building it into what we do here in the Recreation and Culture Department, and really educating the public on why this is important and the opportunities that are available to them. And again, building capacity. So looking at those other partners in the community that are those stakeholders and can help drive this forward in different areas. So whether it is those sport organizations or, the Girls Inc. or other community services within our community, and getting them on board to help move this forward and get the resources. So at this time, I'm happy to take any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Well done. Councillor Crawford, you have some questions.
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. I can't tell you how much I like to hear this. And I'm glad you said Girls Inc., because that was going to be my question, that you would reach out and include Girls Inc. and Boys and Girls Clubs, all of those clubs where they have readily access to the girls in our community. As somebody who has come into fitness very late in my life, I have to say that there is something incredibly powerful when you can lift a weight heavier than a guy, when you can run faster than a guy and endure faster than a guy. And then there's others that say, why do you do it? But it's not about a competition. It's really just about the achievement of being able to do something that I could never do as a kid. I was never, hold on, I don't know why this is getting to me. I was not physically active as a child and was never encouraged to be that way. And being able to be who I am today and gain the confidence by joining certain gyms and CrossFit and whatever has been incredibly changing for me, and a confidence builder that I can, at 62, never thought that I needed, but I did. And so I think the earlier we can engage girls and say that it's okay to do these different sports that have been traditionally held by boys, the better they're going to develop over the years. And so, because I've had a whole weekend of going to a Girls Inc. AGM and hearing about how lives have been changed, and Ontario Shores with eating disorders with adolescents. And it's been a weekend of organizations that have worked very hard to change the narrative that girls are facing, whether through social media, self-inflicted, or with their own peers. And so I think this is incredibly important, and I'm incredibly proud of our town for taking this up. So thank you. No questions.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford, for that emotional and moving comment period. We're going to go on to Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Henry. Way to go, Regional Councillor Crawford. And thank you so much, Laura, for being here on the presentation. It's fantastic. And, this is very near and dear to my heart as well. I have a little 8-month-old granddaughter that is going to come up into this, and I really want her to really believe that fair is fair and equal is equal. So I did have just a couple of questions. On page 12, where you listed the male participation rates by program, so those are the co-ed programs that are currently offered by the Town of Ajax, right? Is that right?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, yes, that's correct. Some of the programs have not returned since COVID. So this was a snapshot of pre-COVID programs and post-COVID programs. So just based on registration trends, some have not come back online. But yes, those are generally, most of them are still being offered through the Recreation and Culture Department.
Excellent, thank you. And based on the research that you have been working with Canadian, I'm sorry, I forget the name of the organization, but the research that you've done so far, are there any programs that you feel are missing from the town of Ajax?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, yes, we've had discussions around with the programming team. I definitely think in terms of looking at adolescents, where that is the most prevalent dropout rate, and then providing, because again, in the report I spoke to the fact that not only is it missing out on opportunities for physical, social, and mental health, but leadership. There's a lot of leadership opportunities missed, so focusing on the leadership side, and that's kind of what Elevate Girls was supposed to address,
Yes.
where we have an older cohort and a younger cohort, and the older cohort has the opportunity to also have leadership training through that and develop programming that they implement throughout the week. But I think a focused effort on leadership, and then also educating on the opportunities that are available in sport leadership to women, such as coaching, again, sitting on boards, whatever that may look like, through organized sport as well.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. And you made a comment about the selection process based on the binary selection field only of registrations. So in first term of council, there was a direction given for a review of all the application processes to respect gender diverse registrations. So I'm just curious, is that part of the process, or was that taken out of this review, or it's not there yet?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, that's not part of this process as of yet. Infrastructure and systems definitely do fall into gender equity. I may defer to Chris Vida, Director Vida, to address where we are in terms of that process for the recreation software system.
Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Bauer, great question. On this one, we have controls that we can oversee with respect to any internal documentation or processes within recreation. When we're speaking on the registration process for most of our programs through ActiveNet, that is where the requirement to select gender male or female is made. We have advocated for through ActiveNet. We will continue to advocate through them, as many municipalities have, in order to change that. As of yet, that hasn't been an option available for us, though.
Okay.
And it's going to pass over to Christy here further.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I just have additional information. We are moving forward with some gender training, which will include hiring a consultant to come on board and to inform some of these mechanisms to make changes to forms and how departments integrate that. So we have to start from a broader perspective in terms of training first, and then looking at how we flow that out into the departments itself to make change.
Okay, thank you for that. And do you have a timeline on that training?
I'm looking over towards my colleague Cassandra, if she might have more information.
Thank you, Director McCarty. Through the chair to Councillor Bauer. Yes, the RFP is currently in development to find a consultant that will complete the training for staff, as well as look at those forms as were mentioned. This is an outcome from some of the work that's being done in the DEI portfolio. So our expectation is that we'll be in a better place to share this information with the council by the end of the year.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that information. Thank you for this excellent presentation. Those are my questions, Chair Henry.
Thank you. I have one question. I'm not seeing any other questions or comments here, correct? Excellent. Okay. So I just have one comment question with regards to cricket and girls in cricket. And that is one of our fastest growing adolescent sports right now in the town of Ajax, particularly in North Ajax. And I'm just wondering what we're doing with regards to that. Well, it's all over the whole town. Like cricket, everywhere you go, everyone's asking about cricket. So we know that we're getting from the men's league a lot of pressure to increase cricket pitch areas. Will there be any programming this summer for the summer camps for the girls with regards to cricket?
So To the chair. Sorry. It's definitely something we can take back to the programming team. I did want to emphasize, so as you can see, where we have added girls only program specifically speaks to those 3 top programs. So we've instituted girls only shinny, we have girls only basketball, and cricket is the last one. I think too, with some of the infrastructure that is coming online through the Ajax Community Center, we're going to have a lot more opportunities. It's absolutely something that can be implemented through the Elevate Girl Sport programming. They do a whole multi-sport curriculum, so they get opportunity to explore a wide variety of sports. So that's definitely something we could look. We have the equipment for it. We run a cricket program. But yeah, in moving forward, I think once those resources have been realized, it's something we can put focus on to look at a girls only cricket as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your presentation today.
Thank you.
Sorry, this portion, no, not at this time. Thank you for your presentation. So I believe at this time we're going to move back into a closed session, correct?
We require a mover and adoption of the recommendation associated with this report and presentation.
So Councillor Lee will be such mover. And I'm sorry, I'm seeing Councillor Bauer here. Okay, sorry, I apologize. I saw Councillor Lee first. So to adopt the minutes for the motion to move back into closed meeting.
No, this is the recommendation associated with the presentation and report.
Or receive for information. Thank you. Now I'm going to need a mover to go into closed session, and Mayor Collier has already given me his hand. There we go, as we move into closed session.
We're waiting 2 members to vote, please.
Members, please vote.
We're waiting on, oh, there we are.
Thank you. We're good.
Okay, Madam Chair, we are in open session.
Excellent. So I need a mover to ratify, which has happened in the closed meeting, and we have Councillor Crawford, correct? Thank you. If we can vote, please, everyone. Thank you. And an adoption of the minutes for the appointments to Accessibility Committee. And we have Councillor Lee. Thank you. Everyone vote. Excellent. Only once. Thank you. And now an adjournment. I need a mover for adjournment. Councillor Bauer. Thank you. And a vote. Everyone vote. Thank you. And that is a close. Thank you.